Welcome, everybody. Good to have you all. Thanks for joining early in the morning. One of the aims of practicing together like this again and again is to become very familiar with what it's like to meditate, even without trying to meditate, even without having a particular technique. I remember there was a time in my practice where I'd learned so many different techniques that every time I'd sit down, I'd say, what am I going to do now? There's so many different tools and techniques. Until I realized that the tool and the technique was actually just a gateway. It was not the main point. The main point is not the tool or the technique. It's like a finger pointing at something. So while tools and techniques can be helpful in the beginning, actually the tool and the technique is not the meditation. It is dealing with everything that is keeping us away from meditation. So in a way, it's more like a medicine. It's more like an antidote. It's not the main thing, actually. Like sometimes when we plan breakfast or lunch or dinner, then we imagine that the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinner is the main thing. But that's actually not the main thing. The main thing is to come out of hunger, isn't it? Whether you have toast or whether you have omelette or whether you have something else. That's not the main thing. The main thing is to come out of hunger. And there are thousands of different kinds of breakfast, different kinds of lunch, different kind of dinner you can have. I was reading somewhere that in New York City, there are so many restaurants. If you dined in a separate restaurant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day of your life, it'll take you some, forgetting what, 200 years to go through all the restaurants. It's like that crazy. And there are new ones coming all the time, right? Madness. So we shouldn't get caught up in the diversity. This can be very confusing otherwise. If you're in New York and okay, now it's lunchtime, oh my goodness, there are so many options. I'm gonna go mad. No, it's not about the number of options. So I would like the fact that we're meeting again and again and again. And even though I share with you different approaches and tools each time, I would like us to look beyond the approach and the tool to the main point. And once you get the main point, then it all makes sense. If you don't get the main point, then everything is confusing and contradictory. So what's the main point? So when I ask that question and I don't immediately answer, then there's a heightened alertness. Yeah, what is the main point? What is this? What is it all about? In Korea, they have a question they ask again and again. What is this? What is this? It's a very powerful question because in a way it dissolves everything. If you keep asking, what is this? What is this? all your concepts. What's coming in the way is your concepts, isn't it? Your ideas come in the way between you and life, between a full experience of life. So I don't see you, I see my concept of you. I see my memory of you. I see my judgment of you, my assumption of you. I don't really see you. So what is this? Allows me to cut through that. What is this? Jeff Foster has a short phrase which I like. He says, life without a center. Life without a center. So I try to simplify in my own way. I try to simplify meditation. And I came up with these 5 gears and 5 accelerations. So the first gear is out, attention out. Attention out is what you normally call out. So what you're seeing, what you're hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Information from your sensory apparatus. So this is the first gear of meditation. So for example, if you're hearing my voice now, that would be part of attention out. Second gear is attention in. So after you heard me, then you said, okay, I don't really agree with that. Or what does he mean when he says that? That's attention in. This is your own thinking, your thoughts about something that's happening on the out. So in, as you can imagine, is thoughts and emotions, feelings, sensations, memories. Words and images inside of you. Attention to the inner experience, your inner life. Attention out, attention in. Second gear of meditation. Now, both of these have a slight amount of contraction because attention out is, in a way, I'm restricting you to what's happening out. Attention in a way, I'm restricting you to what's happening inside. So third one is relaxing in that way. It's everything. Everything. So suddenly there's no division between out and in. Out is welcome, in is also welcome. In fact, out and in is a bit of an illusion. Because you look for a boundary between out and in, you'll have a hard time finding it. It appears like there's a boundary, but if you look very carefully, there's actually no boundary. So attention on everything. So anything that's arising in your experience. And now this is actually where, in a way, true meditation begins. Until now, it is a bit of concentration, focusing on something that's happening outside or inside. But now it's everything. So awareness of everything, attention on everything. Inclusive attention. So sounds are welcome, thoughts are welcome. They're welcome, but we are not clinging to them. Some people describe this as being a gatekeeper of a hotel, where the gatekeeper welcomes everybody but doesn't follow them inside. All kinds of guests come, the gatekeeper welcomes them, but the gatekeeper doesn't follow them inside. So many different experiences arise outside and inside, and we acknowledge them, we notice them, but we don't follow them. We don't make a story around them. We don't cling to them. That would be the third gear, attention on everything. And the fourth one is going to be confusing for the mind because the mind doesn't know what to do with it. Attention on nothing. 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 So what is nothing? It's no thing. So now it's going even subtler. No thing. This is where you truly start challenging your concepts. When you ask yourself, what is zero? What is nothing? What does it mean to put my attention on nothing? Shunya. Now your mind doesn't know what to do with that. So you've given an impossible question to your mind because your mind is full of things, ideas, concepts, beliefs, memories, experiences. It's like saying, what's it like to have no experience or a non-experience? What's it like to have a non-experience? So it's pointing to a very unfamiliar direction. And even though you're going to fail 100% of the time, you will still try 100% of the time. What does it mean to have a non-experience? And to me, it's something like fingers bending back and touching the same hand. Like you're bending back and you're touching your own root. It's like you say, Being aware of being aware. Being aware of being aware. So that's not a thing anymore, because awareness is not a thing. So this is approaching what it means to awareness of nothing, no thing, attention on nothing. So you enter a new world where you're no longer grasping. It's no longer this or that. It's no longer the world of definitions and time and space. Like you're touching a different dimension. And then there's the fifth gear, which is simply grace and blessings. So nothing you have to do here. Grace and blessings. Everything is a play of a vast intelligence. Grace and blessings. Grace and blessings. And because you've done this exercise of, in a way, freeing your mind in different ways, attention out, attention in, everything, nothing. Now this grace and blessing can operate in a more limitless way, not in a very narrow way. Normally, grace and blessing is if I get what I want, then I'm blessed. That would be a very narrow way of looking at grace and blessings. If my life is getting more pleasant, then I'm blessed. If my goals are getting achieved easily, then there's grace, or then blessed. But that would be very narrow. That would be assuming you know what's best for you, which by now I think we should become a little suspicious of. Do I really know what's best for me? So in a way, we're touching these three things: the activity of everything, the activity of nothing, and the activity of grace, or the activity of blessings, whatever word you like. So your life is simultaneously these three things. There's the activity of everything. If you're breathing now, it's because some tree, some ocean is able to convert the carbon dioxide into air. If you're not hungry now, it's because somebody grew food and transported it and allowed you to eat it. So it took all of that. It took some tree, it took some farmer, it took some bacteria, it took some cloud, it took some sun to allow you to have this comfortable moment of life. So your life is not just what's happening in your life, it's the activity of everything. A more poetic way of saying is that it takes the whole universe to create a single grain of rice. It takes the whole universe to create a single grain of rice. So your life is the activity of everything. This is a chance to look beyond your personal story. It's also the activity of nothing. In a way, we come from nothing, we return to nothing. And the sum total of everything we do and don't do also comes to nothing. That can be quite horrifying to the ego, but it's also very liberating, because now you can really play, because at the deepest level, there is no consequence. It's all the activity of nothing. So you can't get this wrong. You don't have anything to prove. And everything you do is always complete. Even the mistakes you make were perfect mistakes. So there's no residue when you see everything as the activity of nothing. And finally, the activity of grace, activity of blessings. It's helpful to consider that we will never, ever truly know the significance of our life. You can't measure it. You don't really know it. You may imagine I've had this impact, that impact. Actually, you have no idea what the significance of your life is. It's like the thread does not understand the significance in the whole carpet. One thread doesn't understand what role it plays in the design, the grand overall design of the carpet. But I think it's a fair assumption. It's the activity of blessings. So make it more real, make it more immediate, make it more personal. What if suppose you say to yourself, I am the activity of everything. So you include the movement of atoms and the movement of galaxies. Not just the movement of your hands and legs, but the movement of atoms and the movement of galaxies. I am the activity of everything. Something important happens. I am the activity of everything. It's like when you enter a room, you're the activity of everything that's happening in the room. People moving around, talking to each other, air conditioning working, not just what's happening with the people, even the insects, the bacteria, even what's beyond your human senses. What if you're not just a person in the room? You're the activity of everything in the room. You're the sum total of that room. You're tapping into something deeper. I think Rumi has a nice way of saying it, that you are the universe in ecstatic motion. You are the universe in ecstatic motion. So the first one is, I am the activity of everything. Or if you want to pose it like a question, what if I am the activity of everything? What if I am the universe in ecstatic motion? The next one, I am the activity of nothing. What if I am the activity of nothing? What if it all adds up to a big zero every single time? You watch a movie, many emotions come up, excitement comes up, fear comes up, tears come up. But at the end, you realize, oh my goodness, it was just a movie. There's nothing here. It all added up to a big zero. What if you are the activity of nothing? And yes, you're taking things very seriously. You're taking your roles very seriously. You're taking your goals very seriously. What you think is your purpose very seriously. But what if actually it's like that movie? Only appears to be very serious. It's the activity of nothing. So allow yourself to see everything that you do as the activity of nothing. The sum total is always zero. Like I had a very vivid dream last night on a few different topics, but the sum total was zero. It was a dream. Many interesting things happen in the dream. Sum total was zero. And I can say, oh, I learned something, or oh, that means something. But ultimately, even that's a big zero. And what if you are the activity of blessings? What if you are the activity of grace? What if I am the activity of blessings, the activity of grace? So I'm going to really expand it a lot. I'm going to say everything you do, including when you get upset, including when you're rude, including when you're not being a good person, I'm going to say even that's the activity of grace. Every single thing you do, the activity of grace, including everything you don't do. And what's the purpose of the dream? The purpose of the dream is to reveal to you that it's a dream. That's the true grace, the true blessing. Not that you get what you like, but they get what they like. So if it breaks your illusion, if it breaks your hypnotic trance, then the work is done. So what if, whether you try or not, want to or not, you are the activity of grace? You are the activity of everything. You are the activity of nothing. You are the activity of grace. So see if you can touch all three simultaneously. What if you're simultaneously the activity of everything and nothing and grace? What happens? I also came up with 5 accelerations, these 5 gears: out, in, everything, nothing, blessings. And 5 accelerations. 5 accelerations. First one is recognize. So when you hear me say these things, it's like a recognition. Oh, there is such a thing. That's recognize. A momentary noticing would be recognize. But then, like in today's practice, I'm getting you back again and again to these things. You're revisiting. Second one is revisit. Recognize is a glimpse. Coming back to it again and again would be to revisit, revisit, revisit. In the process, a third thing happens, a refinement happens, a refinement of your understanding. Each time you revisit, a refinement happens. Recognize, revisit, refine. And at some point, you begin to rest. 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 You're not trying to understand these things. It's kind of obvious. So you can rest. And the last one is you realize. And in a way, what you realize is that there's nothing to realize. You realize that you already are what you're looking for. Stop interfering so much. There's nothing to gain, nothing to attain, nothing to let go of. You don't need to get entangled in anything. So 5 gears and 5 accelerations. Attention out, attention in, attention on everything, attention on nothing. Blessings. Recognize, revisit, refine, rest, realize. What if you are the activity of everything? What if you are the activity of nothing? What if you are the activity of grace and blessings? And like I began this session by saying that all of these things are just pointers. See, this is not the main thing. Talking about 5 gears, 5 accelerations. It's not the main thing. It's like a meal. The purpose of the meal is to come out of hunger. If somebody comes up with 6 gears or 3 gears or comes up with a different approach, that's totally fine. That was not the point. It's pointing to something. What is it? And sooner or later, you realize that you can't get this. You can't grasp at this. We are used to getting stuff. We're used to understanding stuff. We're used to learning stuff. But this is not one of those things that you will get. We had this very handsome French man who came to our monastery. Tall, dark, handsome, good looking. He was actually a model in the fashion industry. And we said, why have you come? He said, I've come to become a monk. All right. Very intriguing. Someone like him has come to become a monk. So he's there quite enthusiastically doing things. So in conversation with him, he says, oh, I've traveled the world, experienced many things. Now I've come to get this enlightenment thing out of the way. We're all laughing. Oh, really? Another tick mark, bucket list, want to get enlightened. He didn't last more than a month. He was gone. Because it's not like the other things. You can't get it. If you think it's a bucket list item, I became a monk and I got enlightened. You don't get these things. It's going to get you. This is different. At some point, you'll realize, oh my goodness, what have I messed with? This is going to eat me up. Oh my goodness, what have I asked for? I can't digest this. This is going to digest me. हिंदी में कहते हैं सूद समेत, with everything. I'm going to be thoroughly inside out. I'm going to be digested. So we have to approach this in a different way. This is not like our normal endeavors in life where you get something. You're actually not going to get anything. You may actually lose a lot in the process. You may lose your security, your beliefs, your assumptions. You may even lose friends. You lose your cherished identity. You lose a lot. But it's good news to lose a lot. Why? Because at least now, at some level, you're voluntarily doing it. It's going to happen involuntarily anyway. Eventually, you are going to lose everything. In this case, it's happening voluntarily. It's painful, but at least it's voluntary. When it's involuntary, and it will happen involuntarily, also you'll lose stuff. Because you're only imagining it's yours. That's very painful. So we call this dying before you die. Dying before you die. You'll get nothing and you'll lose everything. You say, how wonderful. I lost everything. I got nothing. How wonderful. But also in the process, I became everything. I'm the activity of everything. I'm the activity of nothing. I'm the activity of blessings. So let me ask you, I don't think there's a set answer for this, but I'm curious what you come up with. These three things that we talked about. What is it the antidote to? So when you say I am the activity of everything, what is that the medicine for? What is that the antidote to? First question. Second one, when you say I'm the activity of nothing, what is that the medicine for? What is that the antidote to? Does it heal something? Does it adjust something? Does it release something? When you say I'm the activity of grace, what is that the medicine for? What is that the antidote to? So if you feel like, then you open the chat. And if you're getting some kind of an answer, you put it there. And instead of typing so much, you can just say AE can be activity of everything. AE is the activity of everything. It is the antidote to. You can just say what it is the antidote to. So for example, someone says, it's the antidote to feeling separate. That might be an easy one. To realize I'm the activity of everything, I don't feel so separate anymore. That's an example. And AN, what is that? And AG, activity of grace. Or if you feel like typing the whole thing, that's also fine. And let's hear, there's no rush, you can take your time. Take 2, 3, 4 minutes and see what answers are coming. These three things are antidotes or medicines for something. They adjust something, they heal something, they release something. What do they heal, release, adjust? And see if you can put that in the chat. So we have activity of everything connected. So I suppose you're saying it's the medicine for feeling disconnected. I suppose you're saying. AN, activity of nothing, is detachment. So I suppose you're saying it's the medicine for attachment. And activity of grace, unified with God. So it's the antidote to feeling lost, alone, abandoned, separate. Very nice. Then we have another answer. Activity of everything is non-duality, non-separation. So you could say it's the antidote to duality. Activity of nothing is the antidote to clinging. Yeah, holding on tight. Activity of nothing is an antidote to ego. Activity of grace is an antidote to resistance. I just got an image of all of you walking around the world with a nice bag by your side. And in those bags are 3 bottles. The 3 bottles have these 3 medicines. And you're healing all the problems of the world with these 3 bottles. To someone, you give the medicine of everything. To some, you give the medicine of nothing. To some, you give the medicine of grace. That I got that nice image in my mind. And it doesn't have to be, of course, it doesn't have to be in the way I'm talking about it. So you will talk about it in your own way, right? But embedded in what you say and do is the wisdom of, it's the activity of everything. Is the wisdom of, it's the activity of nothing. Is the wisdom of, it's the activity of grace. It's like Guru Nanak had this nice saying, if you don't see God in all, you won't see God at all. If you don't see God in all, you can't see God at all. That's an example of activity of everything. Another nice saying by Guru Nanak is, he says, those who sit on the ground do not have a fear of falling. What a beautiful saying. Those who sit on the ground do not have a fear of falling. Right? So when it's all grace, then what are you going to get afraid of? If that is your ground, that is the activity of grace. But now where is the fear going to come from? Fear will only come when you think, oh, I'm abandoned, I'm in trouble. Let's see what are the answers. Activity of everything is the antidote to loneliness. Activity of nothing is the antidote to ego. An activity of grace is the antidote to clinging. Yeah. I had a slightly different experience, Milan, which of course is just my experience. There was this moment where I felt I'm one with everything. And I felt so alone, actually. Because when you're everything, then there's no other. So it was very alone. It's like, oh, I'm the only one. I'm the only one. There's nothing else. And then it made sense that God would dream up a universe. Let's have some company. Let's divide ourselves up into all kinds of characters. Not to say that what you're saying is wrong. It's just a different perspective. Did you want to say something?
So that's interesting. I can totally feel that experience that you had. For me, it was once I had the experience of being a part of everything, then I didn't feel alone because I was embedded in every single part of life as it's moving and shifting. And so it just made me feel like, I feel like the aloneness comes from when I get too caught up in my own ego and that somehow it's like I'm doing something right or wrong or that it's good or bad. But when then I was a part of anything, it was this full movement and it made me feel whole and connected to everything.
Yeah, makes sense. Beautiful. It's like the same. You held it in a different way than the way I held it. Beautiful. Yeah. I had to actually go and I had to hug a tree for 10 minutes. Like feeling so alone. Then I was grateful when a little bit of duality came back. Like, okay, thank you. And then we have activity of grace is antidote to victim mentality. Yes, very much. Activity of grace is the antidote to hopelessness. Yeah. Activity of everything is the antidote for acceptance. You mean it creates acceptance? So you could say it's the antidote for non-acceptance. Activity of nothing is not to take things seriously. Yes. It's the antidote for over-seriousness. We are on a mission over here. We have important things to do and achieve and become. And it pokes a hole in that. And you can still do stuff. You just don't take yourself so seriously anymore. Activity of grace is the higher game plan. Whatever is happening is the best and the highest possible at that time. Beautiful. Yeah, great reflections. So this is kind of what I have for today. I'll end the recording here. And if some of you want to share things, you can share things.